Hey guys, welcome to episode 15 of the 1023 podcast. The question is, do I need an HPOP when I replace injectors? Or maybe the question should be, do I need an HPOP in my 7.3? So here we go. The answer is this. I would always recommend, in general, I recommend replacing your injectors before you replace the high pressure oil pump if you intend to replace the injectors anyway. So if you're going to replace the injectors anyway, go ahead and do that first. Because one of the problems that injectors have is that they start to leak high pressure oil and they'll just waste it. So if you replace your injectors, or if you're going to replace your injectors anyway, a lot of times that will not fix high pressure oil issues. If you have an HPOP issue or a supply issue, patching the dam at the other end isn't going to fix it. A lot of times it seems like you have a supply issue because you have a dam that leaks. And so if your injectors are leaking, a lot of times you can just fix that, or it will become a lot better. Let me put it this way. You can make a lot more power, like that you can feel that acts the way you want it to, just by replacing your injectors and not your high pressure oil pump, even if you have ICP issues on your stock injectors. So I would always start with replacing your injectors first if you intend to do that. Here's the thing. There's no set mileage. And this, honestly, is another thing that might be, useful or help or whatever, but everybody talks about, like, you've got to drive your truck, 100 miles when you replace injectors. The truth is, like, there's no set mileage that's going to say, like, okay, now you have the air out of your system when you replace injectors. It's a matter of, like, by 100 miles, more than likely you will have the air out of your system, because that's enough time, that's enough run time that it probably fixed the issue of having air in your system. Maybe it happened at 12 miles, maybe it happened at 200 miles. I don't know. Everybody's different, but in general, by 100, it probably fixed it. And it's kind of the same thing with a high pressure oil pump. You don't know if the pump is the issue, or the injectors are the issue, or the tuning is the issue, or whatever. But here's some key things to take away from this. Think about it this way. We've got two ways to get fuel in the cylinder. Only two. We've got pressure and we've got time. Pressure is your injection control pressure. It's your ICP. And let's say we're limited to 3,000 PSI. Give or take, like I said, give or take a little bit, but we're just gonna roll it this way. We got 3,000 PSI. So the next thing is, like, once we've maxed out pressure, we only have time to get more fuel out. And within that time, generally around within the operating range of a 7.3, it's going to be 3,200 to 3,400, somewhere in there. We can't not spray outside the bowls. Like, we're going to spray outside the piston bowl past around 4 milliseconds. Again, it depends on RPM and all that, but around 4 milliseconds, that's why we limit it there. And so if we try to spray up to 4 milliseconds, we have 3,000 PSI. That's our caps. 4 milliseconds, 3,000 PSI. If you can't maintain pressure and we still command the same quantity of fuel, there's going to be a compensation factor. So the way that like the stock tuning is built, and most people build their tuning, we need this quantity of fuel. If pressure doesn't maintain, we need to compensate with time. We need to compensate with pulse width. And the problem with that is, if pressure's not maintaining, we compensate with pulse width, we hold the injector open longer, then pressure gets worse. The problem makes itself worse. It compounds itself. So a lot of times what you'll see is, like, and not for everybody, but in tuning, like especially like race tunes, like that at wide open throttle will get the most of your injector, if we can, is that as pressure, instead of being like, and I'm going to show this at some point. I'll put a post up about this, but as pressure drops, ICP will either stay the same or also drop at wide open throttle. And the reason for that is when we have mass fuel desired, so our quantity of fuel commanded is as high as possible, we're not following that quantity anymore because we need to maintain pressure. The higher the pressure is, the better atomization we'll have and the better burn we'll have. So like compensating with pulse width will sort of help make power, but not completely. So one of my arguments is with small hybrids is we have pressure and we have time. If we're limited by both of those, then usually pressure is the issue. What I would say is, like I said, replace your injectors first, make sure you don't have a leak problem, and then determine at that point whether you need a high pressure oil pump or not. So if you go and you put your truck in a race tune and it doesn't maintain ICP, and so pulse width is compensated in most tuning to get the quantity of fuel out, you're not making as much power as you could make if pressure was up. And in our case, a lot of times anyway, if you run in a race tune, pressure is going to be commanded, and then time, your pulse width, is going to either remain exactly the same. If you have wide open throttle, you have mass fuel is as high as it can get. We're commanding the fuel, and pressure doesn't maintain. You're going to lose fuel. Even if time stays the same, pressure drops and you lose quantity. So, what the premise of that being, if you have stock injectors and you don't intend to replace them and you're not maintaining ICP, replace your high pressure oil pump with something that's better. If you are intending to upgrade injectors anyway, and that's part of your upgrade path, then go ahead and replace your injectors first, and then determine whether your high pressure oil pump is able to maintain the injection pressure that's commanded, the desired pressure, or not, to decide whether you need a high pressure oil pump or not. So that I guess that's the short answer of it, but I sort of want to explain why that answer is. And maybe in the next episode here, we'll talk a little bit more about injectors and sizing and how they have a relationship with the high pressure oil pump to determine what is actually going to work well for what you need. But I appreciate you guys. That was episode 14. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments if you're on Apple products. If not, send us an email to dusty@1023s.com or media@1023s.com. And I'll be happy to answer them. And we're going to keep doing these. I hope to pump one out every single day until we get all these questions answered. And maybe we'll try to get further into answering even bigger questions in a longer period of time that'll be helpful. Talk to you guys soon.